So I'll speak to Ifeanyi Nsofor, who's a Senior Atlantic Fellow for Health Equity at George Washington University. He's joining us from Abuja, Nigeria. Thanks so much for speaking to us on Al Jazeera. So like Malcolm was saying, the coronavirus pandemic and getting the vaccines to those who want the vaccines in the continent is a top priority right now for the African Union. Do you expect to see any progress on this issue as a result of the summit?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Darren. I think we also need to give credit to the African Union, chaired by President Ramaphosa, because despite, the selfishness on the part of Western nations to buying up available vaccines, through his leadership, the continent has at least gotten some level of commitment from the COVAX facility, about 700 million doses, as well as through the Africa Vaccine Acquisition Tax Team, about 300 million doses. That's about 1 billion doses of commitment. However, we're only expecting about 90 million doses by end of this month or beginning of March from the COVAX facility. And apart from those commitments, there are also some other things that the African Union has done under President Ramaphosa as chairperson. Because last year, if you can remember, Western nations also started hoarding personal protective equipment and other commodities for COVID-19. And as a result of that, the African Union set up the Africa Medical Supplies Platform to help with coordinating efforts across the continent for logistics and commodities. And through that African Medical Supplies Platform, African countries can pre-order for vaccines and also book for all sorts of logistics and cold chain equipment for those vaccines.
Right. So do you expect, you're talking about the level of commitment, but do you expect any sort of operational constraints or perhaps lack of preparedness by some countries when it comes to the vaccine rollout?
So I'm sure we're going to have some challenges, but to be honest, I think African countries are much more prepared than Western countries because, we've been doing this for so long. Nigeria has just, as at last year, interrupted polio transmission. So all the investment that had gone into polio eradication, for instance, I think have put African countries in a better stead to really roll out the vaccines when they arrive on the continent compared to the US, for instance, that is still, battling to get it right. In distributing and administering the vaccines.
You yourself have said that you don't anticipate countries on the continent to achieve herd immunity until, I believe you said, late 2022 or possibly into the year 2023, which is in fact later than other regions in the world. What are you basing that statement on?
So I'm basing it on those commitments that have been made by for the COVID vaccine, because even the commitment from COVAX facility, by the time we get everything, it's just going to immunize about 20% of the continent, and that will be sometime late 2022. So going forward, for us to achieve the herd immunity of 60 to 70%, it will take us into 2023 and beyond to do that. And that's why I think, for me, as somebody who is passionate about health equity, I really don't understand why richer Western nations have taken this decision that they have, because ultimately, even if you end up vaccinating people everybody in richer nations, as long as people in Africa are not vaccinated, you're still at risk, because this is a pandemic that does not, respect borders, that can cross, borders, because people will still carry them from one place to the other. So it's really of concern to me, and I hope that through other platforms that the African Union has set, for instance, through the vaccine financing facility from the Africa Export and Import Bank, setting aside about $4 billion to support vaccine manufacture on the continent. I hope that would help us bridge the gap within, say 2 to 3 years.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for speaking to us from Abuja.
Thank you. My pleasure.